Attention, attention, all personnel. Incoming podcast. This is MASH Matters.
Here we are back for another episode of MASH Matters. Hello, all you good-looking and sweet-smelling people.
Now, how do we know? How do we really know they're all sweet-smelling?
Only the sweetest-smelling people listen to MASH Matters, Jeff.
That's true. I'm sorry. You're right.
Hey, I'm Ryan Patrick, and he is Jeff Maxwell. Hello, Jeff.
This is an exciting day, Ryan, for MASH Matters. And it's an exciting day for me as well, because we have a wonderful guest today on MASH Matters who is a dear friend of mine, and I've known her for years. We'll get into the exact number in a minute. But we have been friends all those years and continue to be, which is a real joy in my life. I met her on the set of that show called MASH. Actually, no, I didn't. I met her way before the set called MASH, but we can get into that as well. But I'd like to bring on my dear friend who has been my friend for many, many years, and her name is Karen Lieberman. Karen, welcome to MASH Matters.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, let me just explain very briefly. For a long period of time, you were Burt Metcalf. Burt Metcalf was the executive producer, ended up being the executive producer of MASH for a long time. And you worked with him for all those years.
Yes.
Is that right? You were with him all the years he was the executive producer.
I started, he was the associate producer in 1972 and also the casting director. Then he worked his way up to executive producer. I was with him until 1980. So that would have been 9 years into the show. And I didn't do the last two because I decided if I didn't have a baby now, I never would. I was, as they say, that time clock was ticking. And Alan kept saying every year, this was his final year, and he didn't do it. So I had to bite the bullet and got pregnant and had a little boy in 1980.
Oh, now that was not with Burt Metcalf, is that right? That was not, you didn't.
It wasn't his baby? No. Actually, and that little baby is going to be 45 years old.
Oh, goodness gracious. Holy moly. I'm getting dizzy. Oh, you doggies. Well, interesting. You know, you and I met when I first got to 20th Century Fox. I was just a kid and I wanted to work in a movie studio, and I got the job in the print shop. And I was running these multilith machines, which are big printing machines that back at the time looked like rhinoceroses. And there were 6 of them in this room making this noise. And they were there to print all of the scripts that all of the actors used on the shows, on the movies and television shows that Fox was doing. You were in the script department.
Yes, I was. I was typing script.
You were typing scripts. So producers and various whatever production companies would get you all the scripts and you would type them up and then you would very kindly bring them in. How did that work? Did you bring in the script or you brought in no, you had to bring in the whole script, right? And then we made a master out of it.
Yes, that is. We did it. In those days, we were on typewriters.
Yeah.
We did not have computers. And we would type on some type of, I don't even know what they were called. They were masters that we had, and we would type on them and then proof them. And then we would give the whole stack to the print shop, and then you would run them off.
Oh,
it was it was much, much more difficult than it would be today.
Yes, it was.
But every script had to be proofed. So we had 2 people would sit, one would read and one would read from what we had just written. And then we would make our changes, and our changes were made with a brown pencil. Then we'd have to go back onto our typewriters and make the corrections. And then they came to you. And then you guys printed them out and put covers on them. And then they were sent to the different stages. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was in charge. Are you ready for this? Really date myself. I was in charge of Peyton Place.
Oh, Peyton Place.
Peyton Place. One of the first series on television. It was on Tuesdays and Thursdays in black and white.
Wow. Gosh. Wow. How about that? I didn't know that. Wow.
And you know what stage it was on?
No.
Stage 9.
Oh my, was it really?
Yes, it was on stage 9.
Did MASH then take over the stage from Peyton Place?
I don't remember anything else being in there, but there could have been for maybe a short period of time. And I think once in a while, Room 222 used it as an extra stage.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go into MASH until 1972, and that's where they went from 72 to 83.
Yeah, 72 to 1983.
Yes.
So you went from there. How did you go from there to, becoming part of Burt Metcalf and MASH and all that?
Because we were in the script department, we were kind of like, I guess they would send us off to different shows to help out. And I went from the script department to Room 222, where I worked for the writer on that show. And then actually on my birthday, July 12th, that would have been 1972, I interviewed with Burt Metcalf. The pilot had been shot already and sold to CBS. And he interviewed me, and I got the job. And rather than going back to 222, I decided I would rather do something new. And he also had another show at the same time called Anna and the King with Yul Brynner.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured it possibly would get one or the other. If one failed, I would have the other as a backup.
Yeah.
And so I was hired. It was actually on my birthday. I was hired.
Wow. What a birthday present.
A very nice one. Honestly, the most memorable times of my life. Getting married, having my son, and being on MASH for all those years.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Not necessarily in that order, but, I just can't believe that I worked on a show and at the time we really didn't know what we had.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. And it just, has turned into something bigger than all of us.
It really has. And here we are umpteen years later talking about it,
Yes.
2025.
Yep.
And we're not talking about My Mother the Car, although I would. If I brought it up.
I remember that.
Or Peyton Place.
Yeah.
Or Peyton Place. Yeah, I'm an oldie but a goodie. Going strong. I'm 82.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I was a baby. I was in my 20s when I started.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. And like you say, none of us knew what we had. We didn't really realize it. It was just kind of a job everybody had.
Yes.
And the actors were excited to have a job as actors, and everybody else was excited to have their job too. So nobody really understood it, probably not for a couple of years. And then finally you kind of go, oh, wow, this is pretty good.
Yes.
Okay, so you were in the belly of the beast. You were in the bowels of MASH. You were right there in the executive producer's office, and so things went on every day, and things came up, or problems came up, or great stuff came up, or something. Stuff was going on. What were the mechanisms going on for you every day when you were in that office?
Well, at that time, because we were a new show, and they probably didn't have a great budget. There were only 3 men and three secretaries at that time. And we were called secretaries, not assistants. So Jean Reynolds had a secretary. Her name was Stephanie Post. Larry Gelbart, who was the creator and also executive producer, had Jenny Ola, who incidentally became an editor. She would come every morning at 7 a.m. and go to Stan Tischler and I think it was Ed Berger's editing room, and they taught her to be an editor.
Really? Didn't know that.
On her own, never got paid for it, and became a famous editor.
My goodness.
And then Burt was the associate producer, and I was his secretary. So there was only the 6 of us when we first started out. And then, of course, it got blown out of proportion. We had writers coming in from every which way. But that's how we started out.
Mm-hmm.
We were a tiny family on our own.
You were in the early days there when it was just 6 of you.
Yes.
What were you in charge of? What did you do? What was your day like?
I was, at the time, like I said, Burt was the associate producer and the casting director. So when the scripts came from Jeff, I would go over to the script department or to the print shop, actually, and pick up the scripts. I would take them and give them to the set, and everybody would get a script. I did all the credits. At the end credits of every show, I would type those and send them off, and they would have, I think they were sent to, I'm not sure where I sent them to. It's been a little long time ago, but I sent them off. But every time you see the credits at the end of a show, I wrote those.
Oh, okay.
So were you responsible for the infamous Captain Tuttle as himself credit?
I put it on there, but but I was told to do it. I mean, it
Oh,
wasn't,
okay.
yeah.
You could have taken full responsibility for it.
No, you know what? That's one thing I won't do. And Jeff knows. Jeff's been trying to get me on this program for years. And I said, no, because I'm going to be too truthful. So don't ask me too many unusual questions. But I did that, and I gave actors their work calls. I would call them the night before and say, you want to be on set at 8. And I would say to some of the guys, don't forget, don't shave. We don't want you to be shaven. Bert was the casting director at that time, and so he would give me a little bit more to do each time. And one of the things he would do is he'd say, oh, call Pat Stevens, who was Nurse Abel, and we want to hire her for a couple of days and just, give her whatever the money is, and then we'll send a contract. So I had that, which I thought was great, and I was be able to talk to the agents. And I got one of all those years. I got a production assistant credit for the show, The Interview. Do you remember that? With
Yes.
Cleet Roberts. Cleet Roberts was truly a war correspondent.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that was another fantastic episode.
So what specifically did you do for that episode that garnered that credit?
Well, myself and Jenny Ola would sit in one of the screening rooms, and we went through scripts looking for things that people said that were, and I say important, but more than important. The script itself was loosely scripted. It had questions for Cleet Roberts to ask, but the actors themselves had some, it would say, we want you to talk about, and then they would actually ad lib as their character in answering those questions.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, it was. And the one that I remember the most was William Christopher, may he rest in peace. The one that he gave was that it was cold, and when they were operating on some of these men, they used to warm their hands over their bodies. And I don't know, for some reason that has always stuck with me, which I think is very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the chilling moments in that episode, really, really chilling.
Yes.
So to speak. No pun intended.
No, it was. No, I know. I caught that. I've known you for a very long time.
Yeah,
I know
you
your
have.
puns and and you were absolutely adorable on MASH. I loved you. I just, giving your SOS to all the people as they were coming through, as the cook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I remember all of that. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember
Yeah, me either.
every single thing about MASH. Every single thing.
Well, okay, so let's go back to your memories about MASH. People ask me all the time, and I'm just going to do this because people ask me, you were there in a very important office with the executive producer, all kinds of things must have happened, and you see things that I never saw. But people ask me, well, what was Alan Alda really like? So I'm just throwing that out.
Alan, I got to tell you that all of the gentlemen, all the guys on the set were very, very wonderful. In those days, they were respectful of everyone. They didn't know what they had either, and they never, ever changed. What you got at the beginning in 72, you got the same in 83. And I have to say this, and I've told you this before, on Facebook, when they have these post messages on MASH talking about, oh, this one didn't like that one, and this one hated this one, and on and on and on. Well, you know what? Not only were we a family of cast members, we were a family of crew members. Everybody got along. After 11 years, yeah, we were a family, but we were all treated with respect. And, 11 years of being together, over 50 years ago, and they're still talking bad mouth about things that they never knew anything about. They weren't there. They weren't in the offices. They weren't on stage like you were all the time. These things are what I got it, horse pucky. How's that?
There you go.
Yeah, they were horse pucky.
They're just unsubstantiated rumors that started
Yes.
many, many years ago. And for some reason, even though they've been refuted,
Yes.
many, many times since then, they continue to live. And I don't understand that.
I don't either. And every once in a while, if I'm not doing anything, I get very angry and I will answer them. I've told this to Jeff. It just angers me.
Sure.
You weren't there. You didn't hear it. Don't do this.
Yeah.
Please don't do this.
Respect really was there all the time. And
All
you
the
make a
time.
very good point from 1972 to
83. Yeah. No, they
it
never changed.
went away. It never changed. And certainly everybody's together for a long time. Families have arguments and families disagree with each other. But that respect never, ever, ever went away.
No.
And I think that's a great compliment to all of the actors and all of the people who were on the crew and
Yes.
everybody, the background, everybody was there and had that same feeling.
Yes, absolutely.
And wanted to perpetuate that respect with each other.
You remember the T-shirts they gave out because the crew was so close? We had brown T-shirts. They were pretty ugly, but it said "Happiest Crew in Hollywood."
Yeah.
I still have that.
Yeah.
I still have
that's
that somewhere. We were one of the first companies or shows that actually had product that they sold. I used to get calls constantly. Where can I get a T-shirt? Where can I get? And they weren't doing it. And I used to call the, the attorneys that were there at the studio in the that department, and I'd say, everybody wants product. They want T-shirts. They want sweatshirts. They want whatever. And there was one guy on the set. Don't remember what his name was. But he made us all jackets. We bought them.
Yes.
Like $15.
Yep.
We had MASH jackets but only we had them.
Yeah. Yeah. The one is hanging in my closet. Actually, two of them.
Yeah.
In my closet.
Yes. And I do have a somewhere. Well, I had a hat that belonged to Radar that he actually wore, and then the costumer gave me a sweatshirt that said MASH on it that Loretta Swit wore. And she gave it to me. And then the next season they wanted it. And she says, "Do you still have it?" And I said, yes, I have it. You can have it back. Oh, yes. I just had such a great time. And the first season with Bert giving me more responsibility as a young, I was in my 20s. I was in my late 20s. I didn't know anything really about a lot of stuff. Let's put it that way. And I think one of the things that, like I said, I'm very, very honest. I was watching an Outer Limits, and I remember Bert was standing in my doorway, and he was kind of leaning against the wall. He was like 6'2", and he was in the door jamb. And I said, I saw an Outer Limits last night about this guy that's a DJ, and he's not supposed to turn up his volume on, with the kilowatts. And the monster comes down, and he just kept looking at me and shaking his head. And I said, but oh my God, I said, he was the most terrible actor. He was terrible. And I said, but he looked just like you. He said, it was me. And he walked away. But I knew it was him. I was pulling his leg. We had a lot of pranks on that show.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes. That was my prank on Bert.
Yeah.
We did one on Ken Levine. Remember I told you about Ken Levine read in the paper that Princess Grace of Monaco was coming to be on the board of directors at 20th Century Fox. Oh. And he had his secretary, Jenny, write a letter to her, or it had to be a letter. We didn't have email, saying that when she comes to 20th Century Fox, he'd love to take her to lunch. And we all kind of like, yeah, right. So I had a friend that was going to Monaco. So Jenny and we had stationery made up that said Princess Grace on the front and an envelope on the back. It just said Monaco, and they had, didn't have to put down who, just Princess Grace Monaco. And my friend took it, and we would love to come and have lunch with you. Next time I'm there, I will call you. And it was on powder blue stationery, and we gave it to my friend, and they put a Monaco stamp on it, and of course the return stamp, and we sent it from Monaco. And he really believed it.
Wow, you went to great lengths, literally, to pull these pranks. Wow.
I don't think to this day that he knows that we did it. Somebody did it, but I don't think he knows that we did it. And I've been tempted to get his number and call him and tell him it was us.
He's going to know now.
Yeah, he's going to know.
Yeah.
That's
but
great.
they just, all the people, even the people in the office, John Rappaport and Larry Gilbart. Oh my God. What a brilliant, brilliant, talented man.
Yeah.
And so humble. He really was. That's the thing. They were respectful and they were humble.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, because if they weren't, I wouldn't feel as happy as I do being part of that show.
Yeah.
Again, they included us. The very first show, when it went on the air, I think it was September, maybe the 17th of 72. Not just the cast was asked to come to, was Gene Reynolds' house, but some of the crew they invited too, to see the very first episode together. And how many people do that now?
Yeah.
It's your cast and that's it. Your crew is just there. I was there for the very first episode and saw it with the crew and cast of that show.
Mm-hmm. That came into play a lot when we would go out to the ranch, because the ranch was kind of a tough place to be, because it was either very cold or hot, or bugs were stinging you. And I mean, it was fun for about a half an hour, but before that it was awful, and after that it was awful. But being there with a family, and the crew was a family, we were all together.
Yes.
So there wasn't any, you sit over there and I sit over here. We were just all there experiencing that experience together.
Yes.
And that's what I think was so important. Just as, and I hate to say this, but just in a military situation, they're experiencing it together. They have to help each other, have to support each other. And that's what we were doing. And that goes from Al and Alda to everybody, to the whole crew and whole cast and everybody.
Yes.
And that's what we were, and that's who we were, and that's what was happening. So, the crew on MASH was just phenomenal. Everybody was so.
They were.
So,
Dominic was the cinematographer, and just everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone just. And I don't know if it's that was the age. In the 70s, you just were respectful. I don't know. I haven't been on any sets for a long time, but I have friends that that are younger and still are in the business, and it's just not the same as the way they put it.
Yeah,
it's just not the same.
Interesting.
And the pricing, I don't know if you recall. Do you remember what you made for an episode?
Let's see. It was so low. I probably don't. I don't remember.
It was. We had guest stars on that show. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. There's so many to name, but I mean, like Ron Howard and Pat Morita. Oh my God. Pat Morita was so wonderful. And Patrick Swayze, Blythe Danner, they were all on the show. And each episode, when you signed your contract, you know what those people made?
What?
You ready? $1,000.
Wow.
No one ever got more than $1,000 for an episode of the, I'm talking about the actors, the guest stars.
Yeah.
It was a 3-day shoot and a 1-day rehearsal. And everybody clamored. Everybody called and wanted to be on that show. Mm-hmm. I mean, Burt Young, Rita Wilson, I'm trying to think. Oh, Lawrence Fishburne. And one of the gals that was on the show, who was brand new, her name was Marcia Strassman. Mm-hmm. And she wound up being, and Welcome Back, Kotter, she was his wife.
Yes.
But she was on MASH and she made $1,000. That's it. Nobody ever got more than $1,000.
Wow. I did not know that either. See, I'm learning so much stuff. That's why I wanted to have you on, because now I'm hearing the real stuff.
Yeah. See, now Jeff is finding out that the guest stars got paid more than him.
Well, I think it was like $250 or $350 was for a
day player.
A day player, yeah, like Jamie Farr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jamie Farr was only supposed to be on it basically the one time, and I was there at Daly's the one day that he had shot the day before, and what we would do is the next day they would look at the dailies from the day before. And Jamie comes out, on one scene where he's dressed like the female, army gal, and with the high heels and the dress and the hairy legs. And the director that day before had told him to play it more feminine. So it was extremely feminine when he came out. And the people that were in the screening room, we all laughed. It was all funny. Then sitting directly behind me was Bert and Jean and Larry. And they laughed too, and they thought he was great. And they started talking about it. And the next thing someone said, wouldn't it be better in this day and age, maybe we should make him more masculine? So they called him and called him in, and he was petrified because he thought he had done something wrong. And they said, we would like you to do it not as feminine. We want you to do it more masculine. And the next day they brought him in and he did the scene. And because he was so wonderful, they gave him a reoccurring role. And then eventually he became one of the, cast members.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of changes, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of changes on that show of different actors. And after, I guess, season 3, we lost a bunch of people.
Yeah. Can you speak to that? What was that like during those big transitions? How chaotic was that?
Okay, and I got to give credit to the 3 guys, and especially Bert. Most shows would have fallen apart losing 3 major actors, in a show. They cast it beautifully. That's one of the things. McLean Stevenson was offered other things and he wanted out. So all 3 of them left the show because they wanted to, not because they were let go. Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Each one had their own reason for leaving. McLean wanted to be a bigger star, and I guess his agent and his manager talked him into, let's do this. He had a contract, I think, with NBC that gave him the McLean Stevenson show, which lasted a whole season. Then he had Hello, Larry.
Yeah.
And that lasted 2 seasons. And he was also supposed to be the guest host on Monday nights to replace Johnny Carson when Johnny wanted only work 4 days a week instead of 5.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole story, but I was told that he burned his bridges there.
Mm.
And I don't know exactly what he did, but he did something and they didn't have him back. Mm. So, and he, in his older age, before he passed away, said it was the biggest mistake he had ever made.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it was. I was standing next to McLean with that last scene.
Oh, really?
Standing right next to him. Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know if you know the story, but a script, a MASH half-hour script was around 25 pages. And the last page was always said tag. And it was a little tiny bit just after the last commercial. And there were times that Larry didn't know how he wanted to end a specific show. So for them to say tag to come was not unusual. And Jenny Ola, his secretary, and myself were privy to everybody else did not know until that last scene. And we typed it.
Mm.
And just before they were actually doing a wrap, and it was that last season. And we always had a big party. So there were a lot of people on the set. I honestly don't remember, but I think Larry is the one that took the guys aside and handed him that last tag. And they knew nothing, maybe 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
And Radar was magnificent. I mean, you believed every word that came out of his mouth. And it was, and so those looks and those tears were real.
Mm-hmm. They were.
McLean was standing next to me. He watched it, never said a word. He went to his dressing room and he never came back to the stage.
Yeah. Well, I get chills just listening to you describe that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when we went back to work after that aired, my phone was ringing off the hook of people being very, very upset. Mm-hmm. And letters coming in and how dare you, why did you do that? And Larry had one thing to say, and it basically was war is hell. Mm. And the reason that it went over the way it did is because this man came into your living room every single week. Mm-hmm. And he was part of your family and you lost him.
Yep.
You lost him to war, and it meant what war really was like. And people did die. People didn't come back. And we had people writing in, and I think Larry and Jean actually wrote handwritten notes to those people.
That's amazing. And
again, we didn't have Facebook or any of that stuff to put it on. But rather than send the same thing over and over and over again, just sending, they wrote individual letters to these people.
It's interesting that an actor's life and an actor, McLean Stevenson, decided that he wanted to do something else and he wanted to move on. And that turned into one of the most powerful anti-war expressions that anybody's ever seen on television.
Yeah, he came into your house every single week for 3 years.
It brought the horribleness of war instantly into your home.
Yes.
And so many people would not necessarily ever experience that. And hopefully they don't ever again.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it was the Korean War. We know about World War II. We know about Vietnam. Korean War was almost like a lost war.
Mm-hmm.
You ask somebody about Korea, other than MASH, nobody knew about that war in the 50s. They didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have it on television. You didn't have it publicized, like it is now in social media. It was a lost war. Nobody even remembered it.
I still think more people probably know about the Korean War because of MASH than because of history class.
Correct.
Boy, oh boy.
And I don't know if, I'm sure that Jeff is aware. When we went on the air in 72, we did not have good ratings.
Right.
We had terrible ratings. I mean, and the next day, everybody was coming down. Okay, what were our ratings? What were our ratings? They were, and they were lousy. But CBS really believed in MASH. Do you know how many days we were changed?
No.
It started out on a Sunday. It was opposite. Disney's Wonderful World of Color. We got maybe 5 people that watched the show. We were changed 5 different days.
Really? Did not know that either. Wow.
Yeah. The only days we weren't on were Wednesday and Thursday. We started off on a Sunday. I think we finally ended up on a Monday, but in between, we were on every other day. We were on a Friday night. They had us on a Saturday night. They didn't know where to put us, but they had such faith in us in the show that they kept changing them around. And even time slots, they changed almost every time as well.
And it's remarkable, too, that MASH was able to sustain its popularity in the midst of not only the big cast changes, but you didn't have DVRs, you didn't have VCRs. You had people making appointment television. If 2 shows that you liked were on at the same time, you had to choose which show you wanted to watch.
That's right.
And to keep track of that, if you didn't have TV Guide, good luck.
Oh, yeah. TV Guide was the thing. Can you imagine telling your child, you can't watch Wonderful World of Disney tonight because I want to watch MASH?
Yeah, on your one TV that you have in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something else. It really was.
I know that the ratings, certainly really took off in 1974. That's when I got to be part of the show. So I'm not saying, just.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was you. No. I believe that is absolutely true.
Just throwing it out there. I don't know. Yeah, could not. I don't know.
But again, you had a lot of characters on the show that were just as silly as they were in real life. I was actually at the studio when they did the actual MASH movie.
Aha. Yep.
That was in 1970, and you had Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, and they would go around on their time off, in breaks. They would find the mail carts. We had these little like golf carts.
Yes.
The mail guys would go in these little carts, and they would go around and deliver the mail because it was a big studio. They loved to steal the carts when no one was looking. And we'd get calls. Has anybody seen the cart? Bill so-and-so, he left his cart out on stage 20 and it's disappeared. And one night I was walking out and who comes up? It's the 2 of them in their fatigues and brought it back to the mailroom. Yeah. It was, like I say, it was a wonderful, wonderful time.
Yeah. And the 20th Century Fox lot was really fun too. I don't know whether it was just because we all felt so good about what we were doing or the actual environment helped, but it really had a good feel to it.
It did.
It did, didn't it?
Yes. And when you went into the commissary,
Yeah.
3/4 of the commissary were the regular guys like you and me and, people that worked on the shows in different offices. And then if you went to the right, that's where all the executives were.
Yes.
It was segregated. It was very funny. And you have an actor would come in and everybody would look up, but they'd hear the door open. Everybody would look up to see who was coming in, Oh, who is that? And I worked, I was the junior hostess in the commissary for a while.
Oh, wow.
They needed somebody. You remember June Connor?
Yeah.
June and Art. Okay. They ran the script department, the print shop. They ran the mail room, and they needed somebody to go 2 hours a day to go over to the commissary. and I volunteered. They thought they were giving me like a punishment. I loved every minute. I would say, how was it today? Oh, same kind of stuff. I became an actress, somebody like Paul Newman or Rock Hudson walks in, and those two especially, they didn't assume that I knew who they were. Paul Newman came in. He was doing a movie at Universal, some kind of a racing movie. So he had one of these racing suits on with all these zippers. Mm-hmm. And all the zippers had cans of beer in them. And he came up to me and he said, hi. He said, I'm Paul Newman. I'm here to meet whoever it was. He didn't assume that I knew who he was. Rock Hudson was the same way. He didn't assume that I would know who he was. And then there were others that I won't even name names that were brats. Really brats, but most of the time they were delightful. And that's what it was.
Yeah, that commissary I loved going in there for lunch. And there was a waitress there. Her name was Doris. And she would come over and she had this voice. She would, hi, honey, how are you? What's going on today? The cheeseburger is really good today, honey.
Yes. But you never, ever had tuna on Friday.
No.
Because all the fish that was left over for all the rest of the week, they made tuna out of. And we never, ever ate tuna on Fridays.
Wow. It's a scoop. That's a scoop, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
right there.
God. Oh, yeah. And a Greek man ran it. His name was Nick something.
Yes.
Tiny man. Nick was his name. I think it was probably Daryl Zanuck that brought him over from Greece. And his little apartment was above the commissary. Mm. He got to eat for free. He got free rent, and he got a salary. Mm. And so he built several churches in Greece. Huh. Yeah. Oh, just there were so many wonderful, wonderful things at that studio.
Yeah.
Karen, I want to talk about Burt Metcalf for a bit because you worked very closely with him, obviously. Mm-hmm. When he interviewed you for this position, what were your first impressions of Burt, and how did that change throughout the years?
Let me say that this was Burt's very first time working on a show in the offices. He was an actor. Mm-hmm. He was on Outer Limits. He was on Diamonds Are Forever, Twilight Zone. Oh, matter of fact, do you remember Gidget?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. He was Lord Byron on the beach.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing a video of that when he passed.
Yes. So this was brand new to him. And so his interviewing was very simple. What do you do? Are you married or, whatever. It was a real simple interview, and why I wanted to be on the show, why I wanted to work. And that was it. It was real simple, and he never changed.
Oh, yeah?
He never changed. And so I started in July. First show was in September that it aired. That first Christmas or the second Christmas, I honestly don't remember. I guess I did a really great job because I got the most unbelievable Christmas present from him. From Saks Fifth Avenue, I got a Louis Vuitton wallet. I got a checkbook cover. Incidentally, to this day, I can show you pictures. I still have that, and I still use it.
Oh.
I still, right now, I'm looking at it. It's on my kitchen table. I still have it from over 50 years, and that's how long this Louis Vuitton lasted. Mm. Eyeglass cover and something else. I can't remember. There were like 4 things. And that was I think my very first Christmas with him. And he was wonderful. And once in a while, I got to honest, I screwed up, I did. I remember calling him, his girlfriend, Suzanne, called and left a message to call her. So about 2 hours later, he comes in and he says to me, Karen, you got to be very, very careful. I said, what, did I do something? He says, well, you said that Suzanne called. I have another girlfriend whose name is Susan. and I called Suzanne and said, I'm returning your call. And it wasn't her. It was the other one.
Oh, no.
Oops.
Yeah, I was very embarrassed. Yeah.
Well, that's showbiz.
Yeah. And I was friendly with his ex-wife. She was delightful. Her name was Toby. And then Jan Jordan, who he married, she was an actress. Mm-hmm. They were married until he passed away. I think he passed away in July of 22, I believe. He was 87 years old, born in 1935. And I don't remember why I remember he was born in 35. There was something that, triggers that in my mind.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what. But no, he never changed. He always was wonderful. And so was Larry Gelbart. Larry Gelbart was, again, so brilliant. He was an interesting looking man. He wasn't drop dead gorgeous, but the charisma that this man had was unbelievable. I mean, you actually, when a good looking man comes into the room, there's electricity. When Larry came into the room, he was a nice looking man, but the charisma and the electricity just poured out of him.
Yeah, I adored talking with him. And one day when I learned that he was leaving the show and we were standing there and I said, Larry, why are you leaving this? And he looked kind of just stared out into space for a second. He looked at me and said, I'm just tired.
Yeah.
I went, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He worked very, very hard on that show.
Yeah, he did.
Our offices were also in a wonderful place. It was called the Old Writers Building. Do you remember that? The Old Writers Building?
It's still there.
It's still there, yes. The Old Writers Building was so old. Unfortunately, there wasn't a place for me to sit right next to Bert. Usually your secretary is in front of, right next to you, when they walk into your office. They didn't have that. Larry's secretary was in front of him, and Jean Reynolds' secretary was next to her. I did not have a office next to Bert. I was down the hall, which was fine. Was not a problem. Although I wasn't able to hear deals that he made, which I would have liked to have been more into that. But you ready for this? This building was so old. I used to have the office that used to be the mother's waiting room when they had the kids that they used on the shows. For instance, that's where Shirley Temple's mother waited for her.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of history in that building. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Very much so. And all the other places were taken in that office. That building was Spelling Goldberg, all of their shows.
Is there, I know this is a dumb question because people ask me this all the time. Well, what's your most outstanding memory? And there's so many, but do you have one that you go, wow, I just remember this and I'm never going to forget it because, is there one of those?
I am pregnant with my son. And those days, just starting, you could tell if it was a boy or a girl. And I went to the set and I said, I'm having a boy. And Potter said to me, well, that's because I rubbed your tummy last week, which is true. He only had boys. And I said I wanted a boy. So he says, come here, he says. So he rubbed my tummy. He says, now you're going to have a boy. And of course, I did have a boy. And I said, I need a name with an A, because in the Jewish religion, you name sometimes after the dead, but you cannot necessarily their name, but you can use the initial. And we were going to name her Annie, but it turned out to be a boy. So I can't remember. I want to say her name was Sally, was the wardrobe lady. And she said, how about Adam, the first man? And I said, I like that. I like Adam. And I went back to my office and I called my mother and I said, how about the name Adam? She says, I don't like it. I said, too bad. That's his name.
It's going to be Adam.
That's his name. His name is going to be Adam. That was something that I remember.
Where did life take you after MASH?
Not to the Aftermath show, for sure.
Well, yes. Okay, yes.
Actually, at that time, Adam was, I brought Adam over to the set when he was a newborn. And everybody was, holding him, cooing with him. Where did I go after that? Oh, I know. It took me a minute, you see. I've got to remember all these things. A long time ago. I had my son and I still wanted to work, but I couldn't work on MASH because I had to be there every day and I didn't want to leave my son. So I worked 2 or 3 days a week. I went back to the script department and worked in the script department doing different things, not necessarily typing script, but helping the head of the department at that time. And I had an unbelievable poster of MASH. It was huge. It was like a one sheet that you'd see in the movies. Mm-hmm. It was signed. And I had it in the script department behind my desk. And I came in one morning and it was gone.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah. Someone
goodness.
took it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. It was, it was huge. It was, what the one sheets are, there's how big they are.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it was framed. I had it framed and everybody had signed it.
Oh.
How awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Never found it. But, then yet again, who do you blame? So
Yeah.
I mentioned it to security, and that was as far as it went.
Wow.
Goodness
I
gracious.
really, that was something else. That was, And then from there, when my son got a little older, I went to Universal Studios Hollywood, and I ran their photo booth in the tours.
Oh, okay.
And then I wound up at Disney. I worked in distribution at Disney. And then when I came, my husband, may he rest in peace, did a movie called Vegas Vacation.
Yeah.
He was at Warner Brothers at that time, and he was a unit publicist. And so he stayed here that whole summer of 96. And there was a very, very small part in it was Siegfried and Roy.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't getting enough publicity because once it goes into the can, unit publicist, someone takes over at the studio. And they called my husband and said, would you be interested in coming and giving us some publicity? Make a long story short, it was supposed to be 3 weeks. He lasted 8 years. And I had to move to Vegas.
Oh.
So that's where I wound up, and that's where I am now. And I've been here 25, 26 years. And at that time, I was probably in my 50s. And Las Vegas is a very young town.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a job. Couldn't get a job at the studios. I was too old. So somebody told me about doing tours. And I'm not afraid to speak in front of an audience, never have been. And that's where I wound up. I'm a tour guide here in Las Vegas, still to this day. And then, I do two things. I do work for CinemaScore, which does polling of movies on the first night to see if you like a movie, and that's how the studio kind of finds out how it went.
Mm-hmm.
And I also do screenings for the press. So I actually have 3 jobs, 3 jobs, 3 dogs. And I'm very tired.
I'd say so.
And a Louis Vuitton checkbook, right? Is that right?
I swear,
you got that?
I'm looking at it. It's lasted this long. 52 years, 53 years.
Wow.
I got it 53 years ago, and I'm still using it.
That's great. I don't have a checkbook. I don't have anything to put in it. So I don't have one. Louis Vuitton or not.
I didn't say there was money in it. I just said I have the checkbook cover.
Yeah. Karen, we could do this for another hour and a half. You know us, you and me.
Oh, yes. And we do. We talk sometimes, Like I've told Jeff what I really want to do, and I hope that Jamie hears this. I would love to see him.
Yeah.
He was my favorite. Not because of the acting or anything else, I just loved him.
Yeah.
And I still do. And his wife, Joy.
Well, someday we're going to make that happen, for gosh sakes.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Figure that out.
Well, just one more thing that I could tell you is Thad Mumford and Dan Wilcox were also writers. I mean, we had so many writers, they came and went, whatever. Mm-hmm. But they used to write Sesame books, for Sesame Street books.
Yes.
And when Adam was again named on the set as Adam, this was Christmas of 79. Adam was born March of 80. They got a bunch of their books that they had written, and they signed them, autographed them to Adam at Christmas 79. This is before you're being born. And I have those. That was something what was really great.
Yeah.
Can you imagine before you're even born, someone is giving you books?
Yeah. Wow.
They were all good. They were all wonderful people.
Yeah.
Can't say a thing bad about them. And I wish people would stop putting crap on Facebook.
All right.
Where's Hucky?
You heard it here on MASH Matters from Karen Lieberman, folks. You better listen to her.
That's it. Don't believe all that.
Karen, this has been great. As a lifelong MASH fan myself, I always find it so comforting to know the family that we saw on screen was the same family we saw off.
Yes.
Now, selfishly, from a podcast point of view, I was hoping you'd have some really good dirt on somebody, but that's okay. I never tire of hearing how great MASH was. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, you're very, very welcome.
Karen, thank you very much. I love you dearly.
You.
And thank you finally for coming on. And
you've only been asking for years.
Yeah, I know. But this has been a joy. And I don't think this would have been complete for me personally without you coming on this podcast. So I thank you very, very much.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Ryan, nice meeting you. And thank you both for having me on.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, here's looking up your old address.